Hello and welcome to Masters of the Deal, the podcast where we uncover the personal stories behind billion-dollar deal makers. As the region head for Ideals VDR, I help deal makers close their transactions faster with our virtual data rooms. Over the past 2 decades, I've got to know many of them personally and professionally. So I take this opportunity to tease out how they got to the top. Join me and learn what it takes to become a master of the deal. Abhay Anand is a partner in investment banking at Grant Thornton, specializing in M&A and fundraising across a diverse range of industries, including IT services, technology, pharma, medical device, and healthcare delivery. He supports business owners throughout the entire transaction lifecycle, from deal initiation to successful closure. His expertise covers buy-side advisory, which means target identification, sell-side advisory, which is investor identification or fund type analysis, hybrid fundraising, share buyback, and exit strategies. Abhay has played key roles in transformational deals like EXL's acquisition of Clairvoyant and Tech Mahindra's acquisition of Zen3 Info Solutions, helping clients accelerate digital transformation initiatives. Abhay, as I mentioned earlier, I'm thrilled to have you as part of the podcast. Welcome to Masters of the Deal. Um,
Thank you for being involved.
Look, let's start at the very beginning. Childhood and upbringing. Where are you from?
I mean, I came in from very modest upbringing. Okay, father worked in RBI in Patna largely, and therefore my upbringing was I was born there and I was brought up, schooling, college till graduation, everything was done there. And then as a change of course, he allowed me to do whatever I wanted to do. Okay, and not that I was very knowledgeable or experienced to understand what I needed to do. So I sort of experimented a lot with my with what I wanted to do. And the only good thing that was there is I used to read a lot of newspapers at that point of time. Okay, because that was one of the ways to understand what's going on in the world, especially those times. I'm talking about late 90s. Okay, uh, I could see that people were talking about, MBA as a next thing in the world. And though people were also talking about that you need to be a little differentiated in what you're doing. So, I mean, it was quite late in the day that I realized that I needed to do something like that. So basically, I just appeared for one of the colleges that I thought is a good choice, given that they were talking about doing a combination of CFA and an MBA together. Okay. So I joined in ICFI Hyderabad and sort of finished a 2 years course and joined the industry in Bombay. Uh, the second thing that came out of those newspaper articles was that I was very clear that I wanted to join somewhere in Bombay, because Bombay was supposedly the commercial capital of India, and most of the finance-related jobs were here in the city. So I thought it's a good idea to finish off an MBA and join somewhere in Bombay and figure out the path going forward from there. So yeah, that's a quick background.
So I would assume that your dad would be working in Mumbai, given that he was working for the RBI. Was he working out of Patna or?
Yeah. No. So RBI is headquartered in Mumbai, but RBI has offices across most of the major capital cities of the states. Okay, and so you'll find it in Patna, in the capital of Bihar. I mean, uh, he came in from a very I mean, from a hinterland of Bihar. Okay, just to give you that sense, um, he saw electricity power. Okay, when he actually came out of that place and started working as a school teacher somewhere in the district headquarters. So that was the first time he saw that, okay, there is electricity. Not that he missed it, because he never knew this. Okay, uh, used to study under kerosene lamps and all. So, so he came from that background and then became a school teacher. Worked there for a little while. RBI was obviously coming up in Patna, so luckily got a chance to sort of write the exams and pass and joined in RBI there, and that was the first time he came to Patna. Okay, so that's when he saw the capital city for the first time, and we were lucky. I mean, we were three brothers and a sister in the family, but I was the lucky one because I was the last in the pecking order, and I was lucky to be born and brought up in Patna from that perspective, at least better than what he had in his life.
So that reminds me of Manmohan Singh and studying under the lamp, going on to become, the
Yeah,
economist, the prime minister, someone who saved India in 1991 as the finance minister, etc. So um,
absolutely.
that's that's so interesting. So what did he do for the RBI? Was he what was the
He was
role?
he joined in as a clerical role in RBI Patna, and then later on, obviously, he got promoted to being an officer. And there are a lot of there are two sides to RBI. Obviously, there is administrative part, and then there is bank of banks as far as the audit of other banks is concerned, inspection of other banks is concerned. So he went through all that. Okay, and sort of retired in Chandigarh. But
How many
Chandigarh,
years? How many
oh,
years was he with the RBI?
oh, I mean, that was probably 25, 30 years, if not more. So, I mean, I'm assuming he would have joined somewhere in his early 20s and would have retired at the age of 58 at that point of time, I believe. So the entire life. I mean, you can't think of any other thing, right? When you join a job, like RBI, and from that part of the world, you've got the license to work for that company, for that organization for the entire life. That's it. You never think of sort of resigning or joining somewhere else or doing something else.
I will bring this up later, but I see something you've taken from your dad, because your career only has two
Yes,
companies so far, and they've been long stints, one for 13 years, and now again almost 12 years. And we'll
absolutely.
talk a little bit more about that. Um, but anyways, coming back to your upbringing, being the last child and being lucky enough to not be born in the village, be part of Patna, which is the capital of Bihar, probably getting a better opportunity when it comes to schooling. Um, was there pressure from your parents to study and get a degree? You know how Indian parents are about you got to become a doctor, you got to become a lawyer. Was that the scenario in your household as well?
So, there were two parts to it. And that's why I talked about my father. See, he came in from such a humble beginning that he had no expectations. Okay, the only expectation that he had is that you study, okay, and you get something for yourself as far as a job is concerned. Okay, he was not really bothered about, okay, whether you are an engineer or a doctor or a UPSC guy doing IAS, IPS, or anything of that sort. Though normally people talk about it as Bihari, but the key aspect was that he decided everything on his own in his life, right? So from his perspective, even with his children, he was never really guiding any of us that you need to do this, you need to do that, except saying that you need to sit and study. That was the most basic aspect of it. That's it. Rest is up to you. The way you want to do whatever you want to do in your life. At least get a job and get out and be on your own. That's it. So there was no expectations from his perspective at all.
So, I'm a big fan of Charlie Munger, and one of the things he talks about when it comes to living a happy life is have low expectations, right? I mean, if you set yourself up to become a billionaire, then chances are that you'll be miserable all your life because you might never get there. Um,
Like,
Here it sounds like the expectations were just to study, and it looks like you kind of just studied, but then that doesn't really point to this inclination towards finance. Where did that come from? Was that something you were always good at in school, and hence you lean towards it?
so that's a very good question. So let me tell you, I mean, I was not great at studies. Okay.
Mhm.
And the reason I was not great at is again, I mean, there was no expectation as such. You study as much as you can, you play as much as you can, sort of be disciplined a little bit in life, and that is it. I mean, there was no other expectations.
Mhm.
And so the idea was basically that finish your schooling, try to do whatever you want to do, get your degree, join some organization, ideally a government one, but I chose a path of, getting into private sector, etc. That's all good. Where did I get this inkling about finance was because at that point of time when I was reading those newspapers, I'm going back again and again to that because there used to be that 3 or 4 pages specifically captured at the end of the full newspaper about just career and career related talks. Okay. Which are the colleges, which are the degrees, what people are doing, etc. And that was a good way to, sort of get some understanding out of all this. And there obviously there were two things I talked about. One is that one should do an MBA on some sort of a specialized course in finance because finance was an upcoming arena at that point of time as per the newspapers. I took everything literally, the way it was being talked about. I just picked it up from there and that's it and moved on in my life. And second thing that was there is that you work in Bombay, okay, to start with. So those were the two things I sort of followed from there and ventured into this unknown territory.
Understood. I wasn't good in studies either. I mean, my dad would say, "Please graduate and pass," because I was so much into cricket, and
Mm.
it required a change in system. So I went from CBSE to the Cambridge board, where it was less of memorizing and more of understanding. That I was good at economics, and that shift and really low expectations because I wasn't doing well in studies made me do fine. Right. So.
Okay. Mm. So
um,
you know what? I mean, on that point, just to let you know. So from our perspective, okay, we were all, I mean, all the brothers and we were all studied in no CBSE, no Cambridge schools, no ICSE. We were all Bihar board product. Okay, studied in Hindi language. Okay, and then sort of transition. So there is a lot of challenge that come along with it, right? That's the big.
I didn't know. So even today, is it not the CBSE board in Bihar?
No, there is. Even then, at that point of time, CBSE was there, ICSE was there. But as I said, I mean, the upbringing from my father's perspective, he came in from such humble backgrounds. So he said,
Yeah,
listen, you get into a school, okay, which can get you to 10th board, right?
sure.
And government schools are not very expensive. Your brothers have studied there, so why don't you take your admissions also? As simple as that.
Wow.
I mean, there is nothing to debate and talk and figure out, right? I started in a private sort of a school, okay,
Sure.
uh, during those early nursery, KG, first, second, third standard. But
Yeah.
but after that, he said, it's better to shift to the government school, sort of study till 10th and figure out what you want to do after that.
So your Hindi must be shuddh, must be pure. Like, I mean, as
I don't
Hindi
know.
is
I mean,
meant to be
I can
spoken.
I can understand Hindi, which is very, very, very Suddh, okay? But whether I can speak because it's been a long time, I don't know, okay?
Sure.
But yeah, I can understand any sort of Hindi.
I mean, look, for someone like me, Delhi Hindi is not really Hindi, right? I mean, it's a mix of slang and a few swear words in the middle.
Right?
That's what
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
that's a big one.
Okay, so I mean, I'm amazed. So you went from Patna, not even doing CBSE, but the Bihar board, then going into probably an English medium school, learning and picking up the language there, which must have been a hell of a task. Then taking the advice of the newspaper literally, which was, finance is going to become big, you should do your MBA. And I believe in this case, your dad's expectations were low. He just wanted you to study. So you have complete freedom to actually use your own mind and kind of, decide. And you
Okay.
chose to go this route. Understood. Um, Now, from there to, and then you did this very interesting hybrid course, which was, and I've never heard of this before. It was an MBA with a CFA. Is
With
it?
the CFA, I mean, that's how they positioned it. And as I said, I mean, newspapers were literally talking about this every day. You know that you need to have a MBA is very generic. You need to have a specialized sort of a course along with it, etc. So I thought this is a better idea. And they had a partnership with CFA US at that point of time. Okay, which unfortunately broke down in between. So I did the first level and sort of left it as it is. Okay, then it was only a MBA course and that's it. You know, based on that, you know, I sort of built my career from there on.
So then you went to study CFA one was done. CFA is a hard course on its own. I mean, people who want to get into finance, they try to clear all the three levels. I mean, that's kind of like an MBA on its own. So,
Absolutely.
right. So, Ikfai, from there to getting into investment banking, what was the inclination? Again, were you still reading about, where, because even today, right? I mean, even though AI is changing the industry, it's management consulting, it's uh, what do you call it? The BCGs, it's the investment bankers. Unless you go into law, it's law firms. That's where the real money is. So when MBAs go to study or they graduate, that's what they're looking to get into. Now the industry is changing. Back then, was the thought still the same? Like why this pivot to investment banking?
See, it was not a pivot. Actually, if you look at it, when I got into the college and I was specializing in finance, okay, you know, the thought was, okay, which are the careers which people like to follow, you know, once they get out of their MBA college. Okay, so basically, you know, after talking to people and obviously a lot of reading from here and there as well, but people who were working in the industry. So there were two kinds of um, uh, jobs that were really, you know, talked about at that point of time. So you can do finance, but you don't necessarily do a hardcore finance. You get into a sort of a sales job, right? Which is more of a you know, on the road kind of job where you basically do sales and marketing and nothing else. And then the other arena was, you know, where can you use your knowledge to basically get into hardcore finance. And people talked about investment banking, people talked about research, investment research, etc. And I thought, and obviously, you know, there was that glamour element as well, that, you know, investment banking is going to be big and basically um, it has a lot of money and it's sort of a pinnacle as far as a finance job is concerned. So my idea was that I didn't want to join anything which is sales oriented. I wanted to do something which is more research oriented, more where I can use whatever I would have learned in those 2 years.
Mhm.
I thought, you know, if not investment banking, I'll probably get into equity research or something like that. Okay, but luckily, you know, from the campus, you know, got an opportunity to sort of interview for this smallish boutique, okay, which was sort of doing private equity fundraisers, syndications, and M&As at that point of time, and they were one of the pioneers in that industry. Okay,
Mhm.
and I was just lucky to be there at the right time, right place. Okay, and sort of got that opportunity to sort of appear for their written test, case study, etc. interviews, you know, and then they could select me as one of the as they selected two people from the campus. The other person was obviously having a lot of experience behind him, engineer MBA, and having worked in the industry for what I think 5 years or so. And I
Mhm.
was the fresher that actually joined right from the campus who had no experience at all as far as work culture, etc. is concerned. So that's how I got it.
Are you talking about Cypher Capital? So your first job?
That's the first job.
So right out of graduation, you applied for Cypher Capital. You knew you didn't want to get into sales. You wanted to do a research role.
Right.
Ideally, ideally from, I studied finance. I went to business school. So, you know, most of my friends wanted to get to the buy side right away if possible, right? I mean, because the hours are a little bit more reasonable. You're making more decisions instead of kind of just being at the surface and understanding the industry. And most of them actually get into investment banking with the hope that they can somehow jump over to the buy side. You went straight to doing research for Cypher Capital. So that wasn't an investment bank. That was more research. Was it more on the buy side?
They were just doing pure play investment banking.
Okay,
There
it was
was
pure play
nothing else. Pure play investment banking. They were raising private equity for companies in India, and they were doing cross-border plus domestic M&As as well. So fundraise and M&A, that was the two things that Cypher was always doing. Research was more oriented towards investment banking, and that is it. So it was a sort of a role which typically start in an investment bank where you do a combination of research as well as work with clients to basically do the investment banking part of it. That's it. I mean, it was not an equity research role or anything of that sort, or they were not into investment management as well.
Understood. And how much of the job did you learn through the training that they gave you right after college? Was it all that, or how much of it actually came through because of what you studied in your MBA?
So, what MBA gave was the basic aspects of understanding the nomenclatures, understanding how the calculations are done. Okay, some of those basic aspects was given by the college, and since I came from a very different sort of a background, it gave me the confidence to talk. Okay,
Mhm.
confidence to present, and also we did a lot of case studies in the college. So obviously, it gives that understanding that you can, how what to get out of a situation, and what to talk about and where to focus. Okay, those were the key things that were basically we learned from college. After that, once you get into a job, okay, then it's a very different ball game. Then actually you're evolving pretty fast. And this was an organization, since it was a boutique, it was very top heavy, right? So more partners, less of people below them. So what you get is a tremendous level of exposure. Okay, and you're right in the frying pan, as if I can use that word, because there is no place to hide, right? You don't have a hierarchy which can protect you, which can help you sort of learn things at your own pace, etc. So you're right in the frying pan. If things go wrong, obviously, there will be issues. But I think it was a huge amount of learning from those first. I mean, it's been learning even today, but the first 4 5 years, especially because of my background, I needed to understand how the corporate culture works, what kind of expectations are there, what happens when you are evaluated on an annual basis, what kind of things people are really looking for, etc., etc. So I mean, everything is a learning, right? Because you've never seen it, you've never experienced it, nobody has talked to you about all this. Okay, so it was a great place to work for, at least for those first 5 7 years that I was there.
Most investment banks have analyst, associate, let's say, sometimes AVP, VP, then director and partner. You're
Yeah.
saying that this hierarchy also existed in Cypher Capital, or was it more? It did
No,
not.
no. Actually, it was very top heavy, and then there were a couple of levels at the best, and that is it. Okay,
That must have been
and
great, right? Great experience, great way of learning right at the top. I mean, you're basically thrown right in the middle of the pool and say swim.
swim, absolutely, 100%. And another aspect I wanted to bring out in this is, if you look at, at that time, we are talking about 2000, early 2000s. Okay, in India, most of the investment banking was primarily towards the listed capital market side. Okay, uh, and there was JM Morgan Stanley, there were DSP Merrill Lynch, and those kind of companies which were primarily focused on the listed market side. Okay, and then there was this new crop of boutiques who came in, and that's the evolution I'm talking about, the financial markets. 94, 95 was when, 93, 94 was when PV Narasimha Rao, Manmohan Singh government talked about, liberalization and opening of the economy. From there on, okay, till the first 5 6 years, okay, some of the private equity funds started looking at India, okay, and they were not necessarily in India. They were primarily sitting out of, let's say, US or London, or very few of them at a later part of 2000 started also, setting up shops in Singapore and Hong Kong and those places. So basically, you've got few people who are looking at India from there, okay, primarily. So the idea was, some of these boutiques saw this as an opportunity that this is going to become big at some point of time. Okay. So rather than, when you're setting up your boutique shop, you don't want to be competing with the biggies at their own turf, right? So you started, sort of getting into private equities, getting into smaller M&As and cross-border transactions. And that was what Cypher was also doing. So they were pioneers in the sense that they were the first ones who actually started thinking about private equity syndication in India. Just to set the context here, the one of the first few private equity funds, okay, who started really looking at India was Warburg Pincus, right?
Oliver Pingus. Mhm.
Right, WP, they started looking at India somewhere around 94, 95, right at the beginning. Okay. Obviously not from India. They set up shop in India for the first time in 2001.
6 years later.
Okay. 6 years later. But let me
Mhm.
tell you another interesting aspect. From 2001 onwards, when they set up shop, and somewhere I think 2002, 3 was the first real big exit that they showed in the Indian market, which was Bharti Airtel.
Ooh, what an
Okay.
investment.
Oh, what an investment. When you call what an investment, I don't know whether you understand the whole ramifications of it. And that was the first big time exit as far as Indian private equity is concerned.
All PE got involved and all PE got interested, I bet.
And that's when the bulge bracket private equity funds started taking notice as far as India is concerned. Okay. Blackstone, Apex, whoever, General Atlantic, whoever you talk of, they all shut up shop within the next 3 4 5 years from there. So that's the evolution. 94 to 2001, 2002, it was all people basically looking at it from outside in, okay, and doing investment selectively. From 2002 3 onwards till about 2007, 2008, most of the bulge bracket or other private equity funds shut up shop in India, big time. Okay. And obviously, there was a crash in 2008. And so about 2 3 years, there was a little bit of peace in the sense that people were doubtful of how things will really pan out. But 2011, 12 onwards, then the normal journey started. So that's how it has evolved. And cycle by cycle, people have got more aggressive about India. But initially, that's the situation. And Cypher started right there in 94, 95. Okay. They all came from other bulge bracket investment banks and sort of started looking at syndicating private equity. And I was lucky to join there in 2001. Okay. When the action was just beginning to happen. Okay.
This is what
Initial
another
few
thing I've
years.
seen. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
another thing, like timing. Do you think you were really lucky, like luck played a part in being at the right place at the right time?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, it's all my life, actually. I mean, I don't want to give myself too much credit for that. A lot of it is luck. 100% luck. I mean, there has been some bad outcomes as well, but I think there has been a lot of luck that has played in my career.
Yeah, thinking back at some of the podcasts that I've done, whether that's Mahesh Singhi or talking to um, the others, timing was such a big thing. I mean, I recall him saying that he moved to Mumbai just when liberalization was starting, right? And that move to Mumbai was a big part of the fact that he was there at the right place at the right time, and there was so much opportunity, there was so much unknown, and across careers, right? Or my last podcast as well, being in the tech space when tech was just taking off, right?
Correct.
And here I'm hearing from you again, just when PE was about to start to take off, they were looking at India from far. It needed one exit to spark the torch for everyone else to look at it. So timing is a huge part. I mean, if you're in the water at the right place, then more likely that you might catch a wave. And it looks like you kind of caught that wave, right? I mean,
Correct.
going back to now your dad and this career that you had, I've seen a lot of people in the industry move around to move up, right? They've jumped from one bank or one advisory or one PE firm to another to make those jumps faster. Your dad was with the RBI all his life. You were with Cypher for 13 years now. You've been with Grant Thornton for 12 years. That's a 25-year career already. What's the advantage of staying with a firm for decades versus moving around often?
I think what and I can relate again to the experience that I had when I was with Cypher. I think I told you right. First 5 7 years were super. Uh, I mean, a lot of experience, a lot of understanding of how things are working out and what need to be done to become sort of a reasonable investment banker. Okay. Now, in terms of what happened is, after those 5 7 years, okay, first 5 7 years, there were a lot of options that came because there were a lot of other investment banks that were cropping up who wanted to also do private equity syndication because private equity syndication was becoming big. And the bulge brackets also were looking at setting up shops in, as far as private equity syndication is concerned, because they realized that this is becoming a full-fledged product in itself now. Okay. And I got, um, I can say safely that most of the top tier ones gave me an offer to join. Okay. Now, again, I mean, again and again, I go back to
You're
my
talking
background.
about you're talking about bulge bracket investment banks who are coming into the country from, say, the US
Not
and also.
not the MNCs, not the MNCs. I mean, even today, actually, if you see MNCs have now come up in the last few years. Okay, I mean, at that point of time, I mean, JM Morgan Stanley was there, Inam was there, which was a domestic investment bank, but number one as far as the merchant banking is concerned, IPOs, etc. So a lot of it was being done by the Indian firms who may have some sort of a JV with a foreigner, but otherwise, it was majorly driven by the Indian firms. And then, people like Avenders, who set up shop, O3 was coming in. So there were a few others, like Veda, a few others, right? And they were all beginning to shut up shop, and I got options to, sort of move on to most of, I mean, at least the top tier ones for sure. Okay. And but yeah, I think again going back to the background as I was talking about, I had never seen. I was not very comfortable jumping shops. Okay, and that was, once you develop a little, and probably, in the hindsight, today somebody can say that it's probably not the right thing to do. Okay, right, when you are looking at growing and building your career. But that's how I was. That's the background I had seen from people that, for a little bit of benefit here and there, you don't want to be jumping shops. I developed personal relationships with people on the job, etc. So idea was, no point, just jumping here and there. Try to build your career and whatever options were coming in because of the experience that I had, developed in this organization. So rather than, jumping around, try to build yourself and figure out. Uh, Actually, the driving factor was never money. Okay, to be honest,
What
I
was
mean,
it?
the driving factor was the experience. Okay, and and somewhere I think within me, and it came from the family also that, you know once you prove in an organization, there are less questions. Okay, and I was not very, I would say, cut out for a typical corporate career where there are hierarchies. You're reporting every day. That's something I never liked. Okay, to be honest, and that may be a negative from my perspective, but that's how a personality is, right? So somewhere I was, once you prove yourself, there are less number of questions you can do. There is liberty to do what you want to do, what you like to do, etc. And therefore it doesn't make sense to sort of jump say, go prove yourself, keep reporting every day. I hated that. So I think somehow that was something which was stopping me from jumping shops in my life.
That makes sense. I mean, the ability to, I mean, the minute you move into another organization, the culture changes. The people you're working with changes, the environment change. There is a bit of you having to prove yourself in the new organization for sure, no matter what the money, right? And there's also this bit, at least for me, of loyalty and having worked for something meaningful for a long period of time, where you make a contribution, you want to be part of something which is bigger than yourself, and the ability to control in a sense your own destiny, right? And that comes if you spend a decade in an organization, you've made a mark and you've actually set a path, you've built the team the way you want, you've control over processes and factors. And in fact, today I wrote my Sunday email, and one of the things I wrote about was how Warren Buffett manages his managers. And his message was he doesn't, right?
Mm.
He's like, everyone has a different batting style and I'm not getting them on so that I can tell them how to bat.
Correct.
Right? So once
Very
you've created your own style, then you
mm,
do not want to totally disrupt it and start from zero again. That makes sense.
very
That-
very
that-
true. Very. And once, I mean, you rightly build out that team aspect of it. So you build a team. People are depending, in some sense, people obviously who have started your career after you, okay, on you, sort of look up to you, sort of learn from you, okay. And then, you disrupt everything, one fine day by saying that, okay, I'm shifting. They may have to find another place for them to work, right? Because they're also getting to learn the same thing, right? That they're seeing their seniors to do. So I think somewhere, I was not very cut out for all that, and therefore, sort of I remained stable during the career.
Makes sense. Let's talk about a couple of transactions that you've done. Right? So things that I've found publicly that you've spoken about is EXL's acquisition of Clairvoyant. What drew EXL to Clairvoyant in the first place? Like, what made it such a strong strategic fit?
Okay. See, a couple of things. I just, can I go back and sort of give you a little bit of
Sure. Of course.
additional picture around it, and then, last 12 years in Grant Thornton has been a large part of it has been focused on healthcare side of it. Okay. And there, we've done a number of transactions. Obviously, the focus has been majorly on healthcare delivery meaning hospitals, diagnostic chains, and then pharma as well as med devices. Okay, that has been the large part of the job as of now, as far as the focus area is concerned. And I additionally look at tech. Okay, uh, tech is sort of a lesser of a focus. More is healthcare as of now. And some of the transactions, I don't know whether you picked it up, but for example, we just sold off a company called Amandeep, which is one of the largest chains of hospital in North in Punjab, uh, to a general Atlantic backed platform, which is called Cygnus. Okay, based out of North again. Okay, and then there is another company called Biorad, which is a large orthopedic implants and urology surgery, basically med devices. Okay, medical implants and consumable which goes into the body. Okay, they are one of the larger players in India in that space. So we've done multiple rounds of deals for them. So latest one was a fundraise for them for $50 million from one of the private equity funds. So I think that has been the large part of the focus of late. Tech has been obviously there as an additional responsibility. Um, Coming back to the question that you asked, okay, on Excel's fit with Clairvoyant. I think, see, Clairvoyant, I mean, it's a typical firm where, Indian founders based out of US started with a significant sort of a delivery coming in from India. That's a typical IT services model, right? And they differentiated, they differentiated themselves by being more focused on the data engineering side of it, data analytics, data engineering, and all. Okay. EXL, being a Nasdaq listed company, was pretty sizable in itself. Okay, we ran a typical, global auction for the company in a defined time frame. There was, we reached out to multiple suitors across the world who we thought could be suitable from the company perspective. Maybe about 40 or 50 of them, right, in the whole process. And but what differentiated EXL was one, I think at the at the senior leadership level, there was a little bit of a connect between both sides. Okay, so there was a lot of comfort from that perspective, which was already there in the background. Okay. Additionally, EXL was looking at transitioning from EXL was known as more of a outsourced sort of a BPO model. Okay. Uh, though they were not truly doing that only, but that was one of the essential part of the business, and they were more sort of known for that in the market. Okay, so for them, they wanted to move into something which is more engaging, more value adding from the client's perspective. Okay, and this was right in the middle of COVID. Okay, there was a lot of thought around building up data analytics, okay, platform, and EXL had identified that as one of the growth areas for them. Okay, and they clearly needed a good team which has got the potential to sort of work with them and create a bigger business out of it. And that's where I think it was very, very good fit, both culturally, personally from the senior leadership perspective, and second is the fit that they were looking at. It was ideally suited for them in that business, and it was fitting in well also from size perspective at which they are looking at. They were about I think $1.5 billion as far as market cap is concerned, and they were looking at something around, let's say, $100 million sort of an acquisition. Okay. So it was a very, very, I mean, though we were in the process for about 6, 8 months, it was a very smooth process as far as the EXL is concerned. It happened quick and fast. And there was also a difference between US and India in the sense that, culture in US as far as M&A is concerned is far evolved as compared to an Indian suitor coming in the process. It generally takes a longer time to deal with Indian suitors as compared to the US. They are much more defined. They're very clear in terms of the thought processes. They're clear in terms of the timelines and processes they want to follow while closing a deal. So all that worked very well, and it was a great transaction from that perspective.
That's so interesting. So you talked about the difference between a US buyer coming in versus an Indian buyer coming in. After working for 25 years, have you seen the shift where the checklists and the processes and the end-to-end, even on the buy side and from the India side, is much more focused, targeted, evolved, and getting closer to how the US companies do it?
I think yes, it has evolved, to answer quickly, but there are challenges inherent with India as an M&A environment, I mean, let's say domestic to domestic acquisition. Okay, the challenge always is, I mean, non-IT. If you look at it, then the challenge is the upkeep of the data, the corporate governance, the way the organizations function. Okay, all that differ, and therefore, I don't want to say that Indian buyers are not that evolved, but the challenge is the system drives you to go slow. Okay, and sort of understand the nuances before doing a deal. Okay, IT and tech is far evolved. Okay, both from buyers and sellers perspective, and therefore it becomes reasonably easy to do it faster. But there also we have seen, Indian shooter versus a US shooter. There'll be some amount of difference as far as the quickness of the process is concerned.
Interesting. I mean, being a leader in the virtual data room space, I've now done thousands of transactions from startup to $1 billion acquisition. What I've found is, at least from the Indian side, if it's a family driven business, the challenge is really scanning the documents, getting into one place so that the due diligence is made possible, and that time can really stretch, right? I mean, it's not really about we can start the DD tomorrow. It's just that putting the things in place can take 3 months so that the DD can start. And whereas I guess one of the things from a tech side is there's already that digital footprint which makes the process much faster. So anyone who has to have a look at the data can do it immediately. But I have seen a shift. I think the amount of scanning and whatnot required from a data room perspective, it's got much better, right? I mean, the lead times have fallen. The process is faster, etc. How interesting. Bigger acquisition. So this acquisition with the Clairvoyant, you said was worth 50 million or 100 million?
It was 110 million, 108 million, roughly. I mean,
And
it's
so
publicly around.
And Tech Mahindra's acquisition of Zen 3 Info Solutions. So in that, from what I gathered, Zen 3 had a pretty wide global footprint. How did you manage the cross-border complexities here? And Tech Mahindra is obviously a big company. They're probably much more structured, have pretty focused teams, etc. What was the difference between the two?
Yes, I'll explain that. I mean, the key aspect actually in both the transactions, actually, just to highlight what was the similarity first. The similarity was that there was some level of comfort between both sides as far as the senior leadership is concerned. Okay. That's the key driver as far as the transaction is concerned. I mean, though it's a global auction, you're talking to everybody in the world, but still, I think that matters, especially for, I guess, for the Indians, right? So it matters. What was the dissimilarity was, I think what Tekken was looking at that point of time was primarily building the business along with Microsoft. Okay. Just to take a step back there, I think because of whatever, I mean, Tekken had acquired Satyam, and because of whatever reasons, which is well documented already, Microsoft was not one of their larger clients. Okay. And being in the industry, they didn't want to be left behind from that perspective, because that was one of the high growth, one of the larger accounts, and it was also high growth. Okay. So, and Zen 3 was very, very focused on sell to and sell with Microsoft, right? You have both sides, right, with Microsoft kind of companies, and that was a great fit from Tekken perspective. And obviously there was that leadership comfort between both sides. They knew each other. Zen 3 founders were ex Microsoft as well. So at some point of time they had already engaged with Tekken at various levels, and therefore the transaction was pretty smooth from that perspective. There were obviously other challenges as far as no deal is. I mean, we don't call it a deal till there is a challenge, right, of some kinds, right? So there were challenges, but I mean, I would still say that it was quite smooth as far as the process is concerned.
This particular deal had a performance-linked payout structure. How does that shape?
IT tech services,
All of
most
them.
of probably 95% of the transaction will have three elements, largely. One is will have two elements. 95% probably will have two elements, and there will be few which may have a third element. The first two is there will be an upfront payout. There will be a subsequent payout which will be performance linked or achievement of the projections linked. And there could be a third element, which is not true in all cases, it's very few and far, is basically some sort of a share swap where you get some equity in the company that is acquiring for you to be aligned over a longer period of time beyond your payouts in the short term. So that's the three elements. But the first two are the standard way of doing deals in IT and tech.
How big was this acquisition?
This was $64 million, plus there was additional $4 million of payout, which was so roughly $68 million. I think that was also announced. So we need to figure that out. I'm talking very openly right now. Yeah.
That's fine. So very interesting. In all the deals that you've done, and I read in, I believe, the alumni site of where you did your MBA, that they've crossed $1.5 billion in total. That was a few years ago, so I don't know how much it is today. But there must be certain things which make Grant Thornton stand out as a partner. You are competing with the likes of probably the Big Four, as well as the boutique investment banks in India, as well as the global MNCs now, because they're also in it. I'm sure that you split it up based on whether you're mid-market, whether you focus on only listed companies, etc. So in this case, you have a particular focus in healthcare, so you probably play more of a role there. How do you compete? Because you're competing with some of the best in the industry. Why would somebody come? Why would a Tech Mahindra come to you or an EXL come to you versus go to someone else?
No, so I'll give you a standard investment banking strategy first. Okay. See, typically what happens is, you rightly said, we'll compete with Big Fours, we'll compete with other boutiques which are there in India, and we'll compete with other bulge bracket larger Indian investment banks who are primarily on the listed side of it, because they are now also competing on the private market, right? Because the private equity deals and private M&As are also getting bigger in size. Okay, so obviously it makes sense for everybody to be involved from that perspective. How do I compete? Most of the investment banks will find their own sweet spot. Okay, and obviously you aspire, you keep pushing the envelope. Okay, sort of try to, there will always be that one off or two off where you will do larger transactions, which is way beyond what you typically do. But there is always that sweet spot as well. Okay, and that's true for everybody. It's not only for us, it's true for everybody. And what you typically do as a strategy is you find your own core competence and sweet spot, in the sense that, okay, let's say you decide as a team that, okay, here is, within the team, every leader will decide their own turf, that, okay, listen, I need to, for example, I need to focus on healthcare. Okay, so you'll have to find a large enough subset, okay, that you can focus over a relatively longer period of time to develop your core competence within that. Okay, large enough subsector, the reason being two or threefold. One is large enough because there could be subsegments which could go through there. Every sector is cyclical. People talk about evergreen, etc. Yes, that's true, but every sector is cyclical. You talk of anything in India, globally, everything goes through its own up and down. There may be shorter cycles, there may be longer cycles, there may be more sensitivity towards, let's say, interest rates or something, but every sector goes through its own cycle. Okay, and therefore you need to have a wide enough subset where you can, let's say, a pharma is not very active as far as M&A and fundraising is concerned. I can focus on devices side, I can focus on diagnostic side, I can do a lot of other stuff, right? So the idea is you pick up a large, deep enough pool, develop your core competence, develop your ecosystem within that, your close relationships within that, develop your team's knowledge along with yourself. Okay, and sort of keep doing it over a period of time, so that you are able to become a reasonably decent brand name within that subset. Okay, and that's the basic strategy that most of the guys are following. Number one. Number two is what size. Again, uh, you'll have to figure out what your competition is. Okay, so let's say if there are competing firms which are, let's say, much bigger brands within that subset, and they have done multiple transactions which are large enough, okay, to sort of get that credibility. Obviously, you need to figure out, whether I can compete on their turf, or should I change the strategy and be a little bit mid-market, right? Because as you develop your brand, as you become bigger, you like to focus and aspire for larger transactions, right? So there is some space that is getting created for everybody to get in, as long as you focus and you remain consistent in your approach over a period of time. So I think that's what has been the strategy as far as us is concerned as well. We have defined, I mean, at least personally, I've defined healthcare as a key, and tech as more of a additional responsibility that I'm playing right now as far as the firm is concerned. But the core competence will be focused on healthcare over a period of time and sort of build the firm's brand as well as credibility in the market.
That makes sense. I mean, if you look at where most of the money comes in, I for instance, believe that Pareto's principle 80/20 applies to almost anything we do, right? I mean, there'll be one or two huge deals where all the money comes from, and then there'll be a lot of tiny transactions which will keep the ball rolling and the engine running. Is that the case in your industry as well? Is that something that you often see?
So, year on year, things differ. Okay. So yes, I agree that sometimes when you have one or two large successes, the percentages skew towards 80/20.
Mm-hmm.
80% to the larger transactions and 20% to the mid market. And what do you call a mid market today? Okay, also a definition. I mean, today mid market in India. I mean, when I'm talking about 10 years back, the bulge bracket, meaning the bulge brackets were looking at minimum fee size of $1 million, let's say, foreigners, Goldman, right, for example, right? And Goldman necessarily will not do all the transactions because of all their whatever benchmarks they have set internally for. As far as Indian bulge brackets were concerned, okay, private deals having $1 million fee or about $0.75 million fee, I mean, great. Everybody will jump in. Okay, everybody will jump in. You name whoever. Okay, so and today, if you look at a mid to small boutique, okay, $1 million fee is par for course. Okay, most of the transactions you'll probably make 500,000 to 1 million easily. Okay, right? So it's not a big deal anymore. Okay, obviously now people are okay. If I'm doing a larger deal, can I make a 3 million or a 4 million? Okay, which will probably skew the percentages towards that. But you are not necessarily depending upon those large ones. Okay, I would say barring years where we have really closed larger ones, um, we would be largely 80% within our core competence, right? And 20% plus minus here and there. So that's how it typically works for us. But yes, I mean, in one of those years where you are able to hit that ball out of the park, you'll probably have 80% coming in from the larger transactions. So we are very flexible from that perspective. Everybody is actually on the street, let me tell you.
But isn't so? And again, from what I understand, and usually it's a percentage of the deal value, right? That the investment bankers, it varies between 1 to 3%, depends on relationship, depends on deal size, etc. Understood. What's the one negotiating tactic or principle that has consistently worked for you in high pressure situations?
Negotiating tactics, meaning you're talking about the fee negotiations, or are you talking about closing negotiations with the potential buyer? Well, both are two different things, right?
Both.
Uh, no, no, I agree. I mean, see, I'll tell you, the way it typically works, let's look at, first of all, getting the mandate piece, which is typically from the sell side. Okay.
Correct.
What works beautifully is one, having that relationship, that comfort already there. Okay, doesn't mean that you're going to get it. Okay, but at least that gives you that additional comfort with the founders and the senior management team, whoever is deciding your mandate. Second is, what is the value that you are bringing to the table? Is it that you created that idea? Okay, you initiated that idea. Okay, is it that somebody has already decided that they want to raise X amount of capital and there is a beauty parade going on, right? Okay, So it depends on what you really bring to the table, what sort of credibility you are bringing to the table in that subsector of your choice. Okay, what kind of transactions has it been recent enough? You're bringing in some sort of a differentiated advice, etc., etc. Okay, so those are the things that come to the fore. Okay, fourth is obviously, I mean, assumption is that whatever you're advising your client, you develop your trust, you are truthful, largely, right? I mean, obviously you can't talk about everything, but at least you're largely truthful with your clients. So I think if those three or four basic tenets are in place, then obviously you can bid for a higher percentage. The challenge is when there is a beauty parade going on, right? Then you'll have to be prepared to lose or to undercut. Okay, both. And that's for those kind of situations, specific situations, you can decide what need to be done. uh, and that's how it is typically. So let's say if typically a proprietary transaction, um, uh, there is hardly any proprietary, but let's say an idea which is generated by you have a reasonable leeway with the founders, etc. You will get away with, let's say, a 2% or a 3%, right? I'm just giving a percentage number. In a highly competitive situations where there are significant competition, people are doing beauty parade, etc., then probably you should be willing to lose, or you should be willing to significantly undercut to even, let's say, a 0.75 to 0.5% of what you had initially, sorry, half to two-third of the fee that you would typically get otherwise. Okay. What helps the typical competing situation is also there is a benchmark set, so at least you know that you are going to be within that range, right? Nobody is going to go and say, "Okay, boss, okay, I will work for a 0.5%," right? It doesn't mean anything, unless, I mean, somebody has real desperation to get that deal to set up their credibility in the market, because it's a double-edged sword. Let's say if I go and tell the client, "Listen, I want it, and I'm willing to go down under for this. I'm spending time. I'll probably make losses at the end of the day, but I'm willing to do it." I mean, client is then also thinking, right? Why is this guy so desperate, right? Right. So you have to be balanced in your approach. Yes, beauty parade, you should be willing to undercut a little bit, and that is it. If you lose, you lose, and you can't win everything.
Correct. Well,
Yeah.
let's talk about your leadership philosophy. You've been leading or been in leadership position for 2 decades or more. How do you manage? I mean, what is your thought about your team, building a team, making sure that these are the guys who actually push the firm forward? You're right at the top, so the relationship that you're talking about is probably led by you, right? How do you think about leadership?
I think the first thing, as far as the leadership is concerned, is don't get too bogged down with being a leader. Okay. Uh, I like to, just like I've led my career, my life, I like to be less interfering, like to give as much rope as possible, okay, to the team below, okay, to do their own share of mistakes, sort of learn from them and grow and enjoy the independence as well. It doesn't mean that, I mean, eventually you are part of a team, so there will be some sort of a push and pull that is going to happen. Reviews will always be happening. You're supposed to do some things based on deadlines, etc. All that is good, and that is done. But I would say it's more of throw them in the deep waters. Let them learn to swim themselves, and be ready to help wherever there is a need for help, but at least give that that independence so that they could learn quickly. That is number one. And number two is, I like to look out for those kind of people, who could be more stable, just like me. Okay, more stable, can look at it from long term perspective, right? Because again, I mean, dismantling, disrupting a team is much bigger loss than having a star performer in the team, right? Who can add significant value, but there is a chance that he may leave you 6 months, 1 year down the line. Okay. Uh, See, as I said right at the beginning, investment banking, you need to build your team and you need to grow along with the team. Okay, both from experience perspective, understanding perspective, and the whole cog in the wheel perspective, that you understand each other as well, right? Apart from the industry and the market around you. So if things are in place, broadly stable, the likelihood that the team will do well is much higher, in my view. Okay, I may be wrong, and people may have some other philosophies also, but and that could work well for others. But in my case, I think those two are the most important aspects.
Now, in this case, when you interview and someone comes to you, they will say all the right things. How do you sense and smell whether this particular candidate who is trying to get into your team actually has what it takes to think long term?
Oh, so what happens typically? It's a lot of it is gut feel. Okay, but at the same time, there could be people who would have changed 3 jobs in the last 18 months. Okay, doesn't mean that they will not remain stable going forward. When you ask questions, why did you leave the first job to join the second job? Or why did you leave the second one to join the third one? I think you can make out that, okay, is he looking for the right things for him? Okay. And wherever, if he is giving that right opportunity, he will probably be stable enough. Okay, you can't obviously ask for a marriage for life, right? In a way, right? It's not a marriage, but yeah. But at the same time, you need to be looking out for those tenets in a person, which tells you that, okay, this person will not jump ship just for a few lakhs here and there. Okay. Right? And if he's given an opportunity to grow, opportunity to build his own relationships, opportunity to sort of being at the forefront. Uh, I mean, if he's looking at those kind of things, which I'm willing to give, it shouldn't be a problem, right? So I think that's what you need to basically be caring about, when you're looking at that interview or doing that interview.
Let's ask some quick fire questions before we wrap this up. How do you manage this high pressure, fast paced environment? Like, how do you manage stress personally?
Oh, so I think I'm a very mm, um, spend as much time with the family as possible. Okay, right?
Okay.
And um, that's the surefire way of sort of distressing. Okay,
Mhm.
that is number one. And number two, I don't like to do. I mean, Grant Thornton is big in golf, okay, but I'm not at all interested in that game. From my perspective, it's too much of a time spent away from family and job both, actually. Okay, from my perspective, I mean, there are other people who like this. They may want to spend time. So if I'm, let's say, getting a weekend off or a Sunday or a Saturday off, I love to spend as much time as possible with the family. And within a week, let's say 3 4 times, I like to take that half an hour, 45 minutes sort of exercise, whenever I get time, morning, evening, largely late in the evenings that I do, so that there is less of a disturbance. And I don't complicate things. I'm not a gym goer. I like to go outdoors, do my own things and come back within those half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour, so that I'm not spending too much time into traveling, into getting into the zone or something like that. So it's basically these two: traveling, as spend time with the family. Second is do your regular exercise. Once in a while, obviously, taking those vacations, taking those family holidays, etc., going on a drive, long drives. Those are the 2 or 3 things actually basically helps in terms of putting your mind in place.
So what are your kids doing now?
So I have a daughter who's right now preparing for engineering. Okay,
Mhm.
she's in 11th standard. So So yeah, I mean, spend a little bit of time with her as well whenever she has time. She has less time than me now, so that's the right. That's the challenge. But yes, um, she's the only responsibility as of now.
And are you encouraging of her? Well, she's taking engineering. There are a lot of engineers who've got into investment banking, but when she comes to you for advice on what she should do with her career, what do you say to her?
That's a good question. So I think at some level, I have always told her that education um, is a means to an end. Okay, it's not an end in itself. Okay, whether you do your engineering or you do whatever. Okay, the idea is you do engineering, but it's not necessary that you want to be engineer all your life. Okay, engineering, the reason I'm sort of encouraging her, I mean, to do it properly, is because I want her to learn to compete, okay, to focus over a longer period of time and achieve something which is worthwhile. Okay, if that tenet is there, and this is just that, I mean, I'm not interested in what she learns while doing engineering, or whether after engineering she does xyz things. But the first thing is just to focus on something, some goal for over a longer period of time, and to achieve it by competing with a lot of your peers, is something which is a very important tenet to have, first of all. Okay, and then after doing your engineering, I've told her, I mean, whatever you want to do, whether you want to study further, you want to start your something on your own, you do whatever you want to do, and it's absolutely fair enough. I'll be able to help in whatever you are doing. I mean, that's not an issue. Uh, but don't link education with the career. Okay, career is separate, education is completely different, and I don't encourage her to bother too much about what she's going to do in that career. And that's how you actually sort of help them to decide also that, listen, I mean, there are other things that I need to learn from this, rather than just that, okay, what will I do in my life, and that's why this is important. You're putting additional pressure unnecessarily.
You're doing what your dad did, which is have low expectations and just say, just study.
Correct.
Uh, and there's a big, I mean, I love this quote which says, education does not mean that you're educated, right? A degree does not mean that you've learned anything.
Correct.
Especially in India, where this is a big problem, where, you might have MBAs who can't write well and can't think well, right? They have the degree, but it
Correct.
means nothing if you cannot just sit, focus, and think.
Correct.
So, and actually, I'm not an engineer, but one of the positives I've heard about engineering is the ability to sit with a problem for a long period of time and solve it, irrespective of how much time it takes, right? So that's one thing that I've seen a lot of people encourage engineers, encouraged their kids to do just because of this particular tenet. Awesome. How do you define success? Do you think you've been successful, and has this definition of success changed over the last 2 decades?
uh, in my mind, I what is success for me is simple. um, from my perspective, okay, from where I am coming from, everything I achieve, okay, is great for me. Okay, I have low expectations. I anyways had low expectations, so I mean, I'm very very happy with whatever I'm doing. Okay, and what I've been able to achieve so far. Okay, I could have achieved much more. Okay, as I said, I mean, if I would have made the right moves at the right time, yes, absolutely, I would have done probably much better. Um, so I consider myself, I've done very well for myself. Okay, uh, and the relationships that I built over a period of time, the connects that I built over a period of time, the understanding I've developed over a period of time. Um, One of the big benefits of being in this industry is you are. I'm a I'm a product of the kind of interactions, kind of people I'm meeting. Okay, more than what I've studied and learned on the job, etc. But what is also, I mean, this is also part of the job that you are meeting some of the very evolved private equity fund managers, entrepreneurs who are managing large businesses, very successful businesses. So what happens is you're meeting the best of the breed, okay? And what you learn from them helps you to also learn from them in terms of how to look at things, okay? For example, uh, l- how do you analyze, or how do you pick up high quality businesses, okay? How do you learn from experience and from all these interactions to figure out which entrepreneur will probably deliver, okay, over a long period of time, okay, or what kind of industries will do well, as and what stage of the cycle they are in, etc., etc. And also it also helps you to set your ambitions much higher than what you. So I came in from no expectations, right? From a very very humble backgrounds, okay. No idea of what to expect, right? No idea of how to build a career, okay. No idea of what to choose, what not to choose, right? Let's say for the time, for on the job. So from there on till today, at least I have got an understanding that, okay, listen, over a long period of time, okay, wealth is much bigger than what you used to think, right? Right. I mean, wealth could be, for somebody it could be 5,000 crores, for someone else it could be a crore. But at the same time, in the relative scheme of things, what is real wealth, okay, both in terms of money, the kind of life you're leading along with it, and the kind of credibility you have in the market, all those things become important. And at least you are able to pass on to the next generation that is coming behind you, right? Both people who are working with me, or let's say my daughter in this case, or someone else who asks me questions, right? So I think that's success for me. I don't define it very materially that, okay, I need to have 100 crore, or I need to have closed $1 billion transaction or a $2 billion transaction. I don't look at it from that perspective. It will happen if it has to happen, as long as I'm doing my job right. That's it. No, nothing beyond that.
So you kind of validated another thing, I believe, which is you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. Now you can pull that to your network, and if you're around brilliant people, from what I understand, you're saying that not only are you absorbing the talent, the way of thinking, but it's also shaping you. Would I be correct to say that?
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. I mean, getting business or doing business with these people is actually the least of the things that you get. Actually, there are other things that you are getting which are much more powerful, much more lasting than just the business part of it. And that's where I feel I've been extremely lucky to be at the right place at the right time.
So health, wealth, relationship, purpose. How would you rank these?
You said health, you said wealth, you said relationship, you said purpose. So obviously, health is number one. You know,
Okay.
health is number one. Purpose, um, relationships, and the last is the wealth.
So you're the sixth person saying that wealth comes last. everyone, everyone
Right.
has said that.
It could probably, because you're asking people who would have spent, let's say, a couple of decades in corporate life, and
Right.
are not really bothered about, money too much at this stage, hopefully. Okay. And therefore the wealth comes last. But no, I mean, truly speaking, wealth comes last. I mean, it's just a byproduct of the overall scheme of things that you do.
Let's talk about AI quickly. Today, I read how Microsoft is letting go of 15,000 employees. They're being replaced by AI. Atlegion is letting go of hundreds of them, and of course, investment banking is not insulated. It's management consulting, it's software development. It's one of the most disruptive techs in the last generation. I'm sure you're using AI, taking advantage of AI, but you're also seeing the ground underneath you shift. It's just going to be a different decade. How do you see AI? Like, paint a picture. What do you think, Abhay, in 2040, how would you be running your healthcare investment banking division versus how it's being run today?
Hmm. I think first things first, I don't know whether I'll be here at 2040, but
I believe
okay,
that deal makers last because there's no age of retirement, right? That's
I'll
another
come to
great
I'll come.
question. Do you
Yeah.
think that after this question, do you think that um, the more time you spend in this industry, the wiser you get and the better you get at deal making because you're just adding more relationships, you're refining the relationship you already have? So that's a secondary question, but yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. No, great, great. I think first answering that AI part of it, and more from investment banking perspective. See, AI will have an impact on each and every aspect of life. Okay, that's the fundamental principle. Okay, and how will it have an impact is it will make things more productive. Okay, and it will improve the quality of labor. Okay, quality of people, because what will happen is the most mundane sort of jobs, a lot of them will be done by AI. Okay, along with I mean, as they get more trained, data trained, etc., they can do a little bit of a higher level of jobs as well. I'm more concerned about investment banking. So therefore, what will happen as the bottom of the pyramid? Okay, the bottom of the pyramid 10 years or 5 years down the line will be much higher than the bottom of the pyramid today in terms of the intelligence level, the quality of work that people are doing, etc. Therefore, the education system, also the quality of knowledge that is being given in the MBA colleges, etc., everything need to change. Okay, so it will upgrade the labor, right? Upgrade the people. So there will be, I think, beyond that, the productivity and upgradation of the labor. I don't think there is anything else that is going to happen as far as the investment banking is concerned. Rest of it will will fall in the normal way of doing things, right? So, for example, let's say if I'm meeting people, okay, I'm meeting a company, I can get a quick research done from AI, right? And it will be, I can get exports of annual reports, the presentations, the quarterly results, all that, etc. Being done quick and fast, right? Which a normal person will take probably 3, 4, 5 days to, sort of get it done, right? And so somebody still need to review it, but my point is that bottom of the pyramid will upgrade significantly, and the productivity of the team will go up. Those two changes are definitely going to happen. And third is, which is actually part of this too itself, research will become much more effective. Okay, and that is it. I don't see any other change. I'm not so concerned about AI. It's good for us, and I think it will do good to the overall system.
Okay.
That's your first question, right? So second
Yeah.
one was whether I'll be here and what's the retirement that I foresee, or because investment bankers, as they age, they become better. Okay, see,
Sure.
let me tell you. I mean, I I completely agree with you. Without experience, I think investment banking uh, is you can't be a banker. It's basically just an experience. Apart from other stuff, experience becomes the most important element. I'll tell you, when I interact with a founder, okay, uh, the kind of things I will get out of that meeting, okay. Obviously, a less experienced person will not be, even though he may be more intelligent than me, okay, maybe more qualified than me. He will never. So there is no no way you can get away with without experience, right? The challenge, there is always that pros and cons. The challenge is that the kind of hustle which is required as a banker, okay, and being on the road, meeting people consistently, because if you're not doing that, you lose the pulse, right? So yes, experience is helpful, but missing that hustle, missing that running around, meeting people, hanging out, building on that relationship is also as important. And that's where I think the youngsters or the new generation that is coming in, next generation that is coming in, will be better off versus the experience piece of it. So there is a balance in a team. I mean, there should be somebody with some gray hair that's there, but at the same time, it doesn't, and that is tiring. The other part, right? The hustle part, the running around part is tiring, and that's the limitation as far as our job is concerned from investment banking perspective, right? So at some point of time, you start feeling tired. Listen, I mean, okay, it's $1 million fee, but do I still want to do it? Or a
Correct.
$2 million fee, but do I still want to do it?
Yeah, I'd asked this question. I think I can remember Ashish Ambani's response here, and he said that, after a while, you don't want, it's tiring. You don't want to do the hustle, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, you might be great at it, but spending those hours on the road away from family, I think priorities again shift at certain point in life, and perhaps by then you've made the money, you had the experience, you want to do something else, etc. So that bit I understand. You will lose the pulse if you're not on the road, and you will lose the pulse if you're not really in the think of things in the industry that you're in, and someone
Absolutely.
else will then get ahead. This has been amazing, Abhay. Thank you so much.